Hello, that's Sully's Models. This is the beautiful face behind the annoying Birmingham accent you hear in the videos. Today, doing a bit of a different kind of video. This is more about modelling in general. Why do it? Why do we do it? Why do we enjoy it? So, I've done modelling for many years. Had a massive stopgap in modelling. Only recently picked up probably about 3 or 4 years ago again, when I finally moved out. Always used to do it a lot as a kid. My grandparents got me into it. My granddad was a police officer during the wars in RAF, police officer. As a kid, I always used to take me to Birmingham Airport, watch the aircraft come in and out when they used to have a viewing area, and used to take me to a lot of museums, mainly RAF Cosford, the museum there, which I quite proudly work for now. So drop that one in there. And as a kid, I started doing modelling. I can't quite remember how I got into it exactly, but I always remembered every Christmas in my presents there'd be at least a model for my grandparents. I had a massive stopgap in it. I got a bit brassed off with sort of the level of work, poor work I was doing. Got a bit annoyed with it, dropped it, and probably I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago when I finally moved out, picked it up, had this workshop built. Surprisingly, the wife was very good at being okay with it, and continued a hobby I used to love, to be fair, as a kid. Now with modelling, I mean, to be fair, this is probably the same as any hobby, something that you enjoy doing, whether it's collecting old toys, magazines, comic books, knitting. I don't think any of us probably do knitting, but those kind of things, collectibles, whatever. But modelling, in particular for myself, and probably quite a lot of people maybe the same as yourselves watching this, it's a bit of a bit of an escape to all the shit that's going on, maybe in your life, in the world in general. So something to get away from all the bad days at work, just the nasty things that go on, that comes with life. And it's just something nice to just sort of take you away from it all. Particularly recently and over the years, you have bad patches for whatever reason, and it's always been a good escape for me. Come down, get a cup of tea, and do a bit of modelling. For me, it takes my mind off pretty much anything. To be honest with you, I get very engrossed with it, and again, it's one of my big favourite hobbies. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter whether you're really good at it or not, as long as you enjoy doing it. People say, "Oh, it's sad," do better things, spend money on better things and whatever. But then again, to somebody else, computer games, I mean, to most people that probably could be quite antisocial. You're not going anywhere, not doing anything, but you're enjoying it. Collecting handbags, I don't do that personally. Stuff like that. If it brings you some pleasure, some joy out of what you're doing, doesn't matter. I mean, I used to, my wife, she had a spate of doing knitting. I mean, we're in our early 30s. Obviously, that's somewhat stereotypically reserved for the older people. So of course, as a good husband as I am, I'll wind her up about it. But still supported her in that. She enjoyed doing it. She sold a few bits and pieces as well, so it made her happy. Yeah, okay, she got frustrated with it at times, but anything you do, I mean, modelling, for God's sake, I get frustrated quite a bit with doing stuff, especially when it's not working the way you want it to work. But you soldier through it, and eventually it comes out good. at the other end of it. I mean, I wouldn't class myself in the slightest as a pro modeller. Recently, being a bit big-headed, I think a lot of my work has come on quite well. But you know, with a lot of things, even in general life, it's pushing yourself to it. You know, if you don't, then you're not really, you're not really going to get anywhere. But again, it depends on what level you want to, particularly with like modelling. Depends on what level you want to work at. If you're just quite happily making it, don't care how it turns out, but you've enjoyed it, you've enjoyed the process of making the model, fine, doesn't matter. If you enjoy it, at the end of the day, that's it. You know, it's all about enjoying what you do. You know, so if you come home from a crap day at work or whatever, you come home, workshop, even the kitchen, which is the classiest place to do a lot of modelling. You know, just chuck everything off the table, get some newspaper down, get all the paints, the model out, you know, and work away at it. You know, so as long as you enjoy it, it's fine. I can't really say any more than that, really. You know, it's all about enjoying what you do. Says, you know, I never really used to be any good, particularly good at it. I didn't think. Again, I just enjoyed, you know, making the kits. I actually even learnt stuff from making kits, how sort of, in some cases, how the aircraft worked. In some ways as well, I actually learnt what some of the things did on the aircraft. Now, I mean, and I'm talking about aircraft because it's the main thing sort of my area of interest lies, but I will give pretty much anything a little bit of a go. Have you seen in recent tanks the Panzer IV, I'm working on at the moment is something completely different, really, to what I've been doing. I fancy doing something different, something a little bit, you know, a bit more challenging. And because I've pushed myself to do that, you know, I've done a lot more. I've really got big into weathering. I mean, personally, I like to try and get things as accurate as possible. You don't have to, you know. It's against like all of it. It's a personal preference. You know, I've got a bit of an anal thing about getting things looking fairly accurate and being close to, you know, right as possible. I mean, in saying that, with the Panzer project, the figures that I've got going with that tank are actually infantry and not actual tank crew. Partly because I struggled to find the figures that I liked to go with that model, to make it go the way I wanted it to look. Finding figures at rest is not particularly an easy task. Most of them are, I generally tend to find most of them are German than British. But you know, they're the ones I liked. They're kind of doing what I wanted, so I went with that. I mean, there is tank crews that you can get, excuse me, at rest, but didn't really like any of them. So yeah, so I mean, you know, with doing the modelling, so it's taking your mind off things. And in the case like with this, you know, it's for me, it's pushing myself a little bit more, trying to do something a little bit different, a little bit more challenging. So I've got an old model here to show you. I can't remember when I even did this, but it's an old Messerschmitt 262. It's horrific. It don't look too bad here. I'll add now in some close-up photos, but it's awful. Really, when I look at it now, you know, ill-fitting doors, horrific painting, terrible decals. I've even got, I mean, there's a I don't know what it is. I'm obviously heavily painted along here. We'll see if we can get that. Let's see if we can try and get it in there. Sorry, look at my face, but see there. I don't even know. I don't know. It must have slapped the paint on chronically there. I mean, even the same. You can see the streaking there. It's terrible, really, isn't it? But again, at the time, I enjoyed making that. You know, it's just the point of it. It's also the reason why I stopped doing it for a long period, is because I was getting really annoyed that I just didn't seem to be getting better. So I said to myself, I think I remember the last one I did, 2008, thereabouts. It was a Tamiya Mosquito. It was a nice little model, terribly painted. And I said that's the last model I'm making until I get myself an airbrush. At the time, I was a fair bit younger, going out a lot, getting brassed, getting really heavily drunk. So it wasn't, it was one of them things. It wasn't a particular priority at the time, and living at home as well, it was a bit difficult. Particularly where we was living, it was difficult for me to have any space to be able to do any. So like I said, since moving out, I've really got into it a lot more, and absolutely loving it. It's taking my mind off. When you have a bit of a bad day, completely taking my mind off things. Don't think about it until I go out of the workshop and go back to normal life, if you like. So since then, I've really pushed a lot of my modelling. So to go from this bad painting, I've even just noticed some of the, I've even got where the sprues, were joined to the model. Didn't even clean them. Now I'm obsessed with cleaning that off, and making sure it's as clean and neat as I possibly can get it. Admittedly, I try and do things the cheaper way, if I can get away with doing it. So I don't always have the right tools, definitely don't always have the right paints. As you can see, just in that corner, a lot of old enamel paints, mostly greens and browns, obvious reasons. A lot of greys. Most of the stuff I was doing was pretty much like RAF aircraft at the time. Odd German ones, a couple of American. So I've got all them types of paints. So it limited me quite a bit until I, again, like I said, got back into it, getting an airbrush as well, which again has made my life a lot easier. It's made my work look a lot better. I don't think you don't need to be a pro at it to make your kits look good with an airbrush. It's expensive, admittedly, to start with, but it's an investment at the end of the day. If you really want to get into it, it's worth buying one. Now mine's a fairly cheap one. It's not a big brand, it's not a branded one at all. It's something I picked up off Amazon. I've actually bought two in the last two years. The first one I bought was like, I'm gonna say, a kit, like a set sort of thing. So I got the compressor, and it actually come with two airbrushes, which cost me about £80 off Amazon. And that was kind of just get myself into it, start there, and work got a little bit better. That airbrush was fine. It was good. It's a cheap airbrush. It was fine up until I did a Mosquito 124 scale. I basically burnt it out. It was during the summer. Wooden shed. It gets pretty warm, and it was constantly running, and it just I proper knackered it. What also didn't help is because of being in the shed. I've got insulation, but it's not heated constantly. The heater's only on when I'm in here, so moisture built up in the trap. It wasn't a particularly good trap, to be honest with you. There's a lot of metal in there, so the moisture built up, started to corrode. Partly my own fault, because I didn't, excuse me, sorry, particularly look after it very well. So I bought another one. This time I bought pretty much basically the same thing. The only difference, this one I got tank, like a reserve tank to keep air, so it wasn't continuously running. Again, I actually get one that come with 2 airbrushes, which I think was around about, that was only about, I think it was about £90, if I remember rightly. And you know, it's great. Look after it a bit better now, obviously. You know, so it's well worth an investment. Get a cheap one to try it out. And to be honest with you, I mean, it's just the airbrushes are not, you know, the Iwata ones or Badger or anything like that. I know, because I did buy another one, and it's the same as the one that come with the kit. It was £15 off Amazon. It's fine. You know, it's really good as long as you know what you need to be doing with watering the paints down, thinning them down, not watering down. Thin them down to the right sort of mixture to get it to work through the airbrush without clogging it. Also knowing how to unclog one and clean it up properly. Again, as long as you know you maintain, it's like a lot of things. It's like your car. As long as you maintain it properly, it will last you. I particularly don't have any intentions on forking out, not at the moment anyway, but I can't really see in the foreseeable at the moment either, in forking out on one of these, you know, branded airbrushes. The one I've got's fine, as long as I get my paint mixtures right. It's great. You know, I can't see the point in forking out £100 for an airbrush when what I've got, and as long as I've got it right, watching YouTube videos, you know, to get these sort of the know-how from professional, I mean even some non-professional idiots like me that make stupid videos, you know, just following some of them guys, and I've learnt quite a lot from them, and some Facebook pages as well. You know, going through them, talking to people on there, posting your work, and you know, seeing what people say. As long as you're open up to the criticism, which you do get from some are a bit drastic, for you know, really what you're doing. You know, you get the review counters, and some get overly excited about it and go, "Oh, that's not right, that's not right." But it says it depends on what what you're doing. I mean, sorry, it depends on how you want to portray your work, whether you bother it being realistic or not. I try and get them as realistic as possible. I'm quite happy to put myself up for, you know, strong criticism. I'll take it on and you know, work on that. You know, so it's all dependent how you want to go about it. You know, at the end of the day. So I'll show you. So as we're going from this old thing here, from many years ago, to, I'll make sure I get this right, to this one here, my Smith 109, which I'm very happy about. The level of detail I've put into this, I'm very happy with. I never thought I'd probably ever get to kind of this sort of, you know, this kind of level, but at the same time, as much as I'm very happy with the work I'm doing, I know I can do better if I push myself to do it. But again, it depends on what it depends on where you want to work it. You don't have to. I'm just anal. Just admittedly, I'm anal about it. I like to try and get it as accurate as possible. But if you're just happy, you know, making the kit and painting it up, if it looks crap and you're not bothered, it's fine. I mean, this is when I started out. I was happy with that. I enjoyed making the model, and you know, enjoyed the naff paint jobs I used to do. A lot of cases I just wasn't even bothered about what the actual paint job was. Painted it the way I fancied, somewhat saw in my head, and just plonked it down on the model. You know, so I wasn't happy. So I was happy with just doing that. As I've got on, I like to try and get things accurate, but you don't have to. You know, quite simple as that. I'm probably going to repeat this several more times. You know, I think you've probably got the point now. That as long as you're happy with what you're doing, sod the rest of them. because it doesn't matter as long as you're happy. You know, so it's kind of more of a sort of like a stress relief kind of thing. If you're over here, you're watching this from the UK, you listen on the BBC, there was a thing on veterans struggling with PTSD and turned to modelling as sort of a getaway and a stress relief, you know, and they enjoy it, you know, it sort of takes the mind off things. And again, a lot of them I don't think were, you know, just not bothered. It was just something to take the minds off, something to enjoy doing, rather than, you know, turning to hard things like, you know, drugs and drinking. You know, so, you know, it's a good thing to do. You know, again, it's very enjoyable, and you work at the level that you want to work to. You know, none of the stuff I do for competitions or anything like that, or to be like the, you know, the next best model or anything like that. Doesn't bother me. But I do like to try and get better at things, trying to work new things out. Like the Panzer IV project I'm working on at the moment. I fancy doing something completely different. So I thought it's either a World War I aircraft or a vehicle. After a bit of long searching, I settled on the Panzer IV. Not massively into tanks, but I do quite like the Panzer IV. It's very nice. I saw one at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford in the Land Warfare Hall there, and I've always quite liked that tank. It's a nice little, you know, nice little chubby thing. You know, quite nice, slick little tank. So I thought, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it completely different to what I've been doing. So I'm going to really weather it up, try some different things. So like the mud effect, never done that before. The tracks, I know it's not much, but you know, I thought I'd do something different there. I didn't want to use the standard rubber ones that come with it, so I bought some metal links. They're easy metal links, they're called. And to weather them instead of painting them, which would have been probably more work, which, you know, would have been better really. I would have quite happily have weathered them myself, but I wanted to try a burnishing solution. I'd seen it being done on other models, thought I'll give it a go. It looks, you know, you get quite a cool effect out of it, and it did. The next thing I'm working on is making my own trees, which I'm using this stuff, sea foam. It's a natural product. It's actually some form of plant. I've not looked it up properly yet. Very brittle stuff, but I've been following one particular fella, Luke's APS. If you look him up on YouTube, he's very good. He does a lot of wargaming miniature stuff, which I've done previously a few years ago, when I'd sort of, you know, had enough of doing model aircraft, turned to just making the models. Didn't worry about gaming, I wasn't too bothered about that. Just quite like the models, they were pretty cool, nice interesting things to paint, so again something different. But he does a lot of stuff like that. I think he really enjoys doing trees. A lot of his videos are about trees, so I've been using his videos to try and, I haven't started yet because I need to get some more materials, but I'm going to give it a go following some of his stuff. Hopefully in this diorama as well I'm going to add a bit of water. So the scenery of this one is supposed to be sort of set in France, sort of next to the end of a field. There's a little bit of boundary with some trees, drops down a little bit, and there's like a little sort of irrigation ditch or a stream across the bottom. So I'm going to try and do some water. Sort of tinkered a little bit with, but nothing on a major scale. It's usually like little puddles and troughs and stuff like that, so nothing major, but I'm going to try and do maybe some ripple effect on that. So yeah, so with that project, it's been pretty much a lot of different things. From another project I did, which I think are called Heavy Support, which is a Hasegawa robot, based on sort of like if the Germans made some really cool technology, made robots and all that sort of thing. I did some figures with that, which again that was something I hadn't done. Both of those I had something really I hadn't done before, because I'd really heavy weathered it. Funny enough, I just realised that's it over my shoulder there. So that was again something different, really heavy rusting effects and weathering there. So again something different on that one, and figures in general, and kind of the whole diorama. You know, adding little bits and pieces in there, and again stuff I hadn't really used before. So I wanted to again do sort of a similar thing, sort of, you know, one of the figures in particular on the Panzer project I'm doing at the moment has got a lot of bare skin arms. He's wearing a vest, and I've only really done faces. I've only done I think it's 5 figures on that Heavy Support project. After a lot of fiddling, many hours, nights, trying to do them, eventually I got there with some persistence, and did actually really enjoy it. So I thought, I want to do the same again. And again, this one guy's got bare skin. I did them all right. So as you can see now, it's all right. You know, it's not the best. I know I can do better on these. It's not quite the level I want to be at. But again, bit of you know, pushing myself, and you know, I'll get there. So that's the reason, or the reasons I do. I enjoy doing modelling, and why I do it. Bit of fun, bit of, you know, bit of relax, bit of release from the madness of the world. So I hope to be releasing more videos. Not so much of me just babbling on, you know, more sort of how to do videos, how I kind of do them, and hopefully help other people with the same issues that they're working on their projects. If you were watching this video on why we do modelling for magazines and whatnot, you're on the wrong video, I'm afraid. If you've actually lasted this long, and particularly since my accent, I know it's not the best, it's Brummy. But yeah, so yeah, get into it, enjoy it, you know, have a bit of fun with it. Don't worry about what anybody else says, what anybody else thinks about it. As long as you enjoy it at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So thanks for watching, if you've made it this far, and as always, I hope to catch you in the next video I do. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel for weathering tips, how-tos and whatnots. Also, if you go to my Facebook page, Sully's Models, that has, well, all my step-by-steps will be going on. The videos I'll mainly do for sort of how-tos rather than the whole project. I will do the odd review on the model that I've been working on. So follow us on Facebook, Sully's Models. Subscribe to this channel for more how-to videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.